The sun cast a golden glow over the fields as I approached the tranquil gathering under a banyan tree. Disciples encircled the Buddha, their faces serene and attentive, reflecting the peace exuding from their master's presence. The Buddha's eyes, deep and calm, met mine as I joined the circle and found my place. He began to speak, his voice steady and measured, each word carrying the weight of timeless wisdom. Once, he began, there lived a farmer named Danu, whose life was filled with toil and quiet desperation. His tone invited reflection, and I felt the pull of his words, painting vivid images of this simple man's world. Danu owned a small plot of land, its soil stubborn and reluctant to yield crops under his worn hands. The Buddha paused, allowing his audience to absorb the quiet struggle of a man they'd never met. One scorching afternoon, while tending his meager crops, Danu stumbled upon a small bird injured and trembling with fear. His words carried both the heat of the sun and the frailty of the bird, weaving them into a tapestry of compassion. Danu, though burdened by his struggles, could not turn away from the suffering of a fellow being. The image of the farmer holding the delicate creature filled my mind, evoking a profound sense of humanity. The farmer took the bird to his home, using the little he had to feed and care for it. The Buddha's voice, though gentle, carried the strength of conviction, commanding attention without force. As days passed, the bird gained strength, its feathers regaining luster under Danu's patient care. I could almost hear the rustling of wings, a sound full of hope and renewal. As the Buddha paused, the day came when the bird, now healed, stretched its wings and sang a melody that touched the heavens. His words lingered in the air, the imaginary song resonating within each of us seated beneath the tree. Danu released the bird, and it soared into the sky, a testament to the farmer's selfless act of kindness. The Buddha's eyes swept over his disciples, their faces reflecting the light of this simple yet profound tale. The bird, in its freedom, sang for all who would listen, sharing the joy bestowed upon it by Danu's compassion. The story unfolded like ripples on a pond, each circle wider and more inclusive, touching lives beyond the farmer's reach. One such listener was a weary traveler, his spirit lifted by the bird's song, who found solace under Danu's tree. The Buddha's gaze seemed to reach into each of us, seeking the truth his words might stir within. The traveler, moved by the kindness that nurtured the bird, gifted Danu a pouch of seeds as a token of gratitude. His voice softened, the seeds a simple yet transformative gift, embodying the essence of reciprocity born from compassion. With those seeds, Danu's barren land flourished, bringing abundance to his family and those around him. The story's arc was complete, a testament to the unseen threads connecting lives in unexpected and beautiful ways. As the Buddha finished, silence enveloped the gathering, the weight of his words settling into the soil of our hearts. What do you see in this story, Ananda? The Buddha's question, gentle yet probing, was directed at his attentive attendant, whose expression reflected deep thought. Ananda's voice carried humility and understanding as he responded, I see the power of a single act of kindness, extending beyond what the giver could imagine. The Buddha nodded, his gaze warm with approval, encouraging deeper reflection among all present. He addressed us, his disciples, his words flowing like a river nurturing the landscape of our minds. Kindness, though small in appearance, carries a force as vast as the ocean, reaching shores unseen. His metaphor drew us into a shared vision, the ripples of kindness stretching far into the distance of our imagination. The Buddha's eyes met mine briefly, and I felt the silent invitation to carry this understanding into the world. When we act with compassion, we plant seeds of goodness that grow into trees sheltering many lives, he continued. The circle of disciples remained still, their presence grounding the profound truths being revealed under the banyan's shade. "Let your hearts be like Danu's," the Buddha urged, his voice imbued with quiet strength and undeniable conviction. "When you encounter suffering, respond not with indifference, but with the gentle hand of kindness and care." His words filled the space, rooting themselves into our consciousness like seeds finding fertile ground. In doing so, you become the pebble that sets ripples into motion, creating waves of positive change in the world. His hands, palms open and steady, seemed to mirror the generosity he described, inviting us to embody this teaching. The gathering, though silent, felt alive with the wisdom imparted, the air charged with the possibility of transformation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the banyan's shade lengthened, and the evening air carried the scent of blooming flowers. The Buddha, rising gracefully, brought his hands together in a gesture of peace, marking the end of his teaching. We, his disciples, followed suit, the moment binding us in shared purpose and understanding. Walking away from the gathering, I felt the story of Danu reverberating within, its lessons shaping the landscape of my thoughts. The banyan tree, now silhouetted against the fading light, stood as a silent witness to the day's teachings. The Buddha's words, like Danu's kindness, left an indelible mark, a ripple that would continue to touch lives far and wide. Another day, under the fragrant canopy of blooming jasmine, the disciples gathered in anticipation of the Buddha's teaching. The air carried the whispers of rustling leaves, a serene backdrop to the wisdom about to unfold. The Buddha sat cross-legged, his presence calm and steady, radiating the tranquility of the forest grove. The disciples' expressions reflected their eagerness and reverence as the Buddha began, his voice a gentle river flowing through the gathering. "Long ago," he said, "there ruled a king named Virata, whose reign was marked by grandeur and pride." Each word painted a vivid picture, the king's powerful image etched in our minds by the Buddha's measured cadence. Virata, believing his might unmatched, sought to expand his kingdom, preparing to invade his neighbor's peaceful lands. The Buddha's tone carried the weight of ambition and the subtle thread of caution that often follows it. His army was vast and his treasures abundant, yet his heart carried the burden of unbridled ego. The words resonated, drawing us deeper into the tale, our imaginations enraptured by its unfolding. On the eve of the invasion, an old monk approached the king's camp, bearing a humble bowl of rice. The Buddha paused briefly, his silence allowing us to picture the monk's serene figure amidst the regal chaos. The king, puzzled by the simplicity of the offering, asked, "Why rice, when I feast on gold and jewels?" His question, seemingly dismissive, revealed the vast distance between material indulgence and spiritual understanding. The monk, with unwavering calm, replied, "Gold and jewels feed your pride, but rice may nourish your soul." The Buddha's voice softened as he spoke the monk's words, their meaning reverberating like an echo in a silent hall. Intrigued by the monk's quiet confidence, the king invited him to share the rice and speak through the night. The gentle cadence of the Buddha's narration mirrored the humility and wisdom of the monk's actions. The monk spoke of impermanence, the fleeting nature of power, and the futility of conquest for mere pride. The Buddha's words carried both caution and enlightenment, pulling us closer to the universal truths embedded in the tale. His teachings touched the heart of the king, like the first light of dawn piercing the veil of night. The image of transformation hung in the air, a quiet promise of clarity where ambition once clouded thought. By morning, King Virata abandoned his campaign, choosing to rule his people with compassion and humility. The Buddha's tone carried the strength of the king's decision, his voice steady and inspiring. The path of destruction faded, replaced by the path of unity and understanding. Like dew melting under the morning sun, the disciples remained still, their breaths measured, absorbing the transformation of Virata's heart into their own reflections. The Buddha's gaze turned towards Sariputra, whose eyes reflected the light of deep contemplation. What lesson lies within this story? Sariputra? The question, gentle yet searching, carried the weight of shared discovery among the assembly. Sariputra bowed respectfully before speaking, his voice calm and considered. True strength is found in humility and compassion, the echoes of wisdom that surpass power and pride. The Buddha nodded slightly, his approval a quiet affirmation of the disciples' understanding. Addressing the gathering, the Buddha's words flowed like the wind, filling the grove with the energy of wisdom. Humility is not the absence of strength, but the resonance of truth revealed through understanding and compassion. The phrase held a power unmatched by its simplicity, an invitation to embrace the echo within ourselves. He continued, like a hollow reed, the humble heart allows the wind of truth to pass through, creating harmony and melody. His words drew upon the imagery of nature, grounding the profound teaching in the world we all shared. When pride clouds the heart, it blocks the melody, leaving only the silence of discontent and isolation. The disciples' faces reflected the depth of this truth, the wisdom settling like leaves on the forest floor. The Buddha's presence seemed to grow as he addressed us, his voice steady and unwavering. Virata's transformation mirrors our own journey, the shift from pride to humility, from conquest to compassion. His narrative lifted us, binding the journey of the king to our shared path as seekers of enlightenment. Let your hearts echo humility, for it is the thread that connects us to the universal truth within all beings. His hands, open and steady, invited us to embody these teachings, the gesture reinforcing the wisdom shared. Through humility, we create not division but unity, the melody of compassion resonating through the world. The jasmine-scented air seemed to carry the message, spreading it like seeds borne by the wind. As the Buddha rose, his movements graceful and deliberate, the disciples followed, their silence filled with purpose and reflection. The teachings, though concluded, lingered in the grove, their resonance shaping the paths of all who gathered there. The forest, a witness to the echoes of wisdom imparted, stood quietly as we departed, our hearts carrying the weight of Virata's transformation and the Buddha's enduring truth. Another day, under the vivid hues of dusk, the disciples gathered by a calm lake, awaiting the Buddha's wisdom. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of lotus blooms. As the Buddha's tranquil presence filled the space, he sat silently for a moment, gazing into the still waters, his reflection serene and steady. The disciples watched as the Buddha began to speak, his voice soft yet profound, resonating with the stillness around them. Once, he said, there lived a sculptor named Matanga, whose quest for perfection consumed his days and nights. His tone carried the weight of the sculpture's dedication, drawing us into the story of his craft. Matanga poured his heart into every statue, yet no matter how hard he tried, he saw flaws in his work. The Buddha's voice mirrored the frustration and longing that shadowed Matanga's relentless pursuit of perfection. Desperate for answers, he wandered aimlessly until he found himself standing before a clear, calm lake. The image painted by the Buddha's words seemed to still the air around us. Holding our focus, gazing into the lake's waters, Matanga saw his own reflection, unchanged and unfiltered, revealing his own inner imperfections. The Buddha's pause allowed the disciples to absorb the moment of clarity experienced by the sculptor. In that instant, Matanga realized his flaws were not in the stone he carved, but in his own heart and mind. The revelation hung in the air, the simplicity of the truth deepened by its universal resonance. Matanga returned to his craft, no longer striving for perfection, but seeking truth in each stroke of his chisel. The Buddha's voice grew softer, carrying the quiet transformation that shifted Matanga's purpose and connection to his work. His statues, though imperfect, radiated life and authenticity, touching the hearts of all who beheld them. The disciples' expressions reflected their inner reflections, the story resonating in their own search for truth. Turning toward Mahakasyapa, the Buddha posed a question, his gaze steady and patient. Mahakasyapa, what does this teach us about truth? The disciple bowed his head respectfully before answering, his voice filled with reverence and thoughtfulness. Truth lies not in flawless images, but in clear reflections that reveal the essence of our hearts and existence. Mahakasyapa's words echoed the sculpture's discovery, intertwining with the Buddha's wisdom. The Buddha nodded slightly, his eyes filled with understanding and gratitude for the shared insight. Addressing the gathering, the Buddha's voice carried the strength of gentle clarity. The mind is like a mirror, reflecting the reality it perceives. Whether clouded or polished, his words transformed the metaphor, grounding it in mindfulness and the human experience shared by all present. When clouded by delusions and desires, the mirror distorts, creating an image far removed from the truth. The disciples listened intently, their silent presence affirming their connection to the teaching. The Buddha continued, his words like a stream flowing toward its inevitable confluence. When polished through mindfulness and understanding, the mirror reflects truth as it is, untainted by distractions. The lake, still and clear, seemed to amplify the essence of the teaching, grounding it in the natural world around us. Turning back to the lake, the Buddha's gaze lingered, as if drawing strength from its quiet depths. Each stroke of Matanga's chisel became an act of truth, carving not just stone, but his own heart. His voice carried the transformation of the sculpture's journey, bridging the act of creation with self-discovery. So too must we shape our thoughts, words, and actions, carving truth from the stone of existence. The disciples sat still, their breaths measured, as the weight of the teaching settled into their hearts. The Buddha's eyes swept over us, his presence filling the gathering like sunlight penetrating a shaded grove. When the mirror of the mind is clear, it reveals not just ourselves, but the unity of all life. His words invited us to look beyond individual reflection, toward the greater connection binding us to the world. In truth, we find clarity, and in clarity, we find peace, the peace that transcends all suffering and illusion. The disciples bowed their heads, their silence speaking of gratitude and understanding. As the Buddha's words etched themselves into memory, the lake's surface, undisturbed by wind, reflected the gathering and the fading colors of the sky above. The Buddha rose, his movements deliberate and fluid, his presence embodying the wisdom he imparted. As we dispersed, the teachings lingered, their resonance shaping the paths we would walk beyond the gathering. The lake, now a silent witness, stood as a mirror for the reflection of truth revealed in the twilight. The Buddha's words, like strokes of Matanga's chisel, carved the story of transformation and clarity into our hearts. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.